The award-winning golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Club in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Oh, good morning, good morning. Welcome in the Out of Bounds Show. ESPN 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Mississippi Ag for your next John Deere tractor. 16 locations for you. Your John Deere tractor for your family land, farm, or hunting camp. agup.com to find a retail location nearest you. John Deere, America's tractor. 16 locations. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. We welcome in Dallas Cowboys insider Bobby Belt to the Modelo guest line as we're a couple of days away from the NFL draft. And Dak Prescott's Dallas Cowboys will pick number 10. Well, we think, depending. But right now, they'll pick 10th in the NFL draft. Bobby, tell me what direction you think Stephen and Jerry Jones will go with the 10th pick in the draft Thursday night.
It's tough because, if you get a CeeDee Lamb situation where somebody they just are in love with that they didn't expect to be there slides down the board, then they could very easily go that direction. But I think the likelihood is you're looking at this coming down to, two guys there in the SEC. You're looking at, J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain, the two cornerbacks out of South Carolina and Alabama.
Which one do you like more and why?
I'm kind of a coin flip with them, to be honest. I think I might I might be a little bit more inclined to say Horn, because, as one scout told me, he's the only, alpha cornerback in the class. He's the only guy with that, alpha dog mentality when he's out there playing, and that's something you really need to get up there and line up on that island one-on-one with somebody. And so I prefer Horn a little bit. I think that, it's really 50-50, I think, for them. But, I think if they were to, right this moment, have to make the pick, I think they'd lean Horn.
What would it take for Bobby Belt, Cowboys insider on the Modelo guest line? What would it take for Steven, or what would it take for Jerry Jones to move out of that pick and maybe pick up a second-round pick too, Bobby?
I think if one of the quarterbacks is sitting there, if Justin Fields or someone slides to there and they can leverage that and get somebody to move up, that isn't Washington, but maybe Chicago or New England or somebody like that, then I think they'd just be looking for, extra capital this year would be nice for them. But I think they would potentially be looking for extra capital next year, because I think they feel better about their ability to scout next year. This year they've largely been at home. They were off the road for a long time. They didn't get to do a lot of the research that they normally do. It's a much smaller class. There's only about 600 players signed with agents, and that's going to be much higher next year. Some of the estimates I've seen said there's going to be 2,000 players in next year.
Bad deal.
And so it's going to be a little tough, I think, for them to do this the way they normally do. It's going to be the most unique draft that the Cowboys and any other team have ever been involved in. So if they do trade back, I think they might be looking more for, let's find somebody who will give us a 1 next year.
All right, Bobby Belt, Cowboys insider. You got to follow him on Twitter. This guy keeps Blake and I rolling, both during the season and the off season. Walk me through. Jerry and Stephen Jones don't sit in there and break down tape. I just don't see it. They're jet setters. They're going to dinner. They're living life as a billionaire family. Am I wrong? What is their approach? Because we know that Jerry runs the show. How does that work, Bobby?
I think they sit in on meetings and they're briefed and they're shown film. I think Steven's a little bit more hands-on personnel, whereas Jerry's a little more, just taking in what people are telling him. I think Steven's got a little bit more of a bent towards actually evaluating in some cases. But yeah, I think mainly they're trusting the team that they've put around them. And it's worked out for them for the most part since Will McClay took over the draft. And so they feel comfortable, I think, with the people that they put in place to evaluate these things, and they trust them to deliver them future starters throughout the draft.
We're talking about Dak Prescott's Dallas Cowboys. All right, if they go corner at 10, what do they do with the 44th pick in the second round for my guy Dak?
You know, it depends on what safeties potentially could be on the board. In the unlikelihood that Trayvon Merrick from TCU, the safety, slides to them at 44, I think they'd run that pick up there. More likely, I think they'll be looking at some defensive linemen that they like there. And that might be the sweet spot for them to take their first defensive lineman, potentially a defensive end. So that could be Joseph Osai from Texas. If Boogie Basham from Wake Forest slides there a little bit, that could be somebody they look at. Or they could be looking at, a defensive tackle if, Christian Barmore were to slide a little bit from Alabama or somebody like that. So I think defensive line is probably a strong bet if they go corner in the first.
All right, so let's say they go corner, then D-line. Third pick, 75th pick in the draft. Now do they go offense, O-line?
Potentially. I mean, they could realistically go offensive line at 10 if somebody slides to them like Sewell.
Okay.
Or maybe even Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. I don't think 44 would be the spot for them to do that. But, yeah, 75, 99, those two picks in the third round, you could start seeing them looking at some of these value offensive linemen. It's a pretty deep draft for offensive linemen, but that may be the area where they'd look at somebody like BYU's Brady Christensen, who's a tackle. They could look at someone there, or Deontay Smith from Eastern Carolina. That could be a range that they look at them. But, yeah, I think that if they don't go O-line in the first, I would expect them to take some sort of lineman on the third or fourth.
Ooh, I'd love for Slater Sewell to drop to 10. That would be –
They would too.
All right, do you feel like they would move off corner for sure if Slater or Sewell dropped to 10?
I think if Sewell was there, they for sure would.
Okay.
Slater, maybe. I think it would just depend, because I think I don't know that they view Slater as a tackle. I know he played tackle at Northwestern, but I think they view him more as strictly a guard, whereas with Sewell, I think they feel good about him playing left guard this year, and then when Tyron potentially moves on in the future, you just bump him out to left tackle. I think they feel good about him playing anywhere on the offensive line.
Who do they – we're visiting with Bobby Belt, at Bobby Belt TX on Twitter. Great follow. Dallas Cowboys insider. He joins us on the Modelo guest line talking Dak and the Cowboys. Who are they in love with as far as a pick, top 10-ish prospect that could fall, that may have a chance to fall to them?
It's true, everything you hear. They are absolutely in love with Kyle Pitts. But, I mean, the rest of the league is, the tight end from Florida. I think that's a bad idea, not because Kyle Pitts is a bad player, and not because he wouldn't be better than Blake Jarwin, your starting tight end. My argument this whole time has been that when Dak Prescott was in there and the offense was humming along early last year, he was throwing for 500 yards and they were scoring 38 points. You cannot really expand the passing game any more than that. And so, to me, you're just changing the way the pie is divvied up rather than expanding the pie, essentially. You're shifting targets around to Kyle Pitts if he comes here. I don't think it's a net neutral benefit to me. And so, but I mean, they like him a ton. And if he were to be there at 10, they probably would pick him.
Okay, what do they have to do? Let's say they nail two picks and a third one is right there. What do they have to do to be a contender this year, as far as in this draft in the first 3 rounds, in your opinion?
I mean, they've got to have a draft similar to the one they had in 2016 when they got Dak and they got Zeke and, they got Malik Collins as a starter, and Jalen Smith obviously had a redshirt year that year, but they need to get immediate contributors, several of them, particularly on defense, and I think even more particularly in the back seven. So they need really strong linebacker depth. They're not going to bench Jalen and Leighton Vander Esch, but they do need extra bodies behind them with Sean Lee retiring and with Leighton Vander Esch's health always being questionable and Jalen Smith's play always being questionable. So they need linebackers. They need safeties. They need corners. They really do need to replenish that defense. And I don't think that there's any way they're able to contend without getting minimum 2 new reliable starters immediately, guys who can start and play well this year on defense.
All right, we're visiting with Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider, but he's also all into the NFL draft through the NFL Network and his podcasts and so on. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. First round is Thursday. Bobby, let's go to number 3. I just find it, Mac Jones, really? I find this hard to believe that Lynch and Shanahan did this, all this moving around to go get Mac Jones. Are you buying this, or is this smoke and mirrors?
I mean, it could be smoke. I remember the Chargers smoked everybody pretty bad in 2016, that there was a thought that they weren't going to take Bosa, and then they did. And so there's a little bit of that at play, I think, that you have to consider is, are you getting smoked out here? But, I mean, consistently, really reliable people publicly and privately keep telling you they're leaning Mac Jones. And I think that is great for the Cowboys, because if Mac Jones doesn't go at 3, I don't know that Mac Jones goes 4 through 9. And so if you end up getting 5 quarterbacks taken in the first 9 picks, that makes it more likely that somebody the Cowboys really want gets pushed down to them. I mean, it's conceivable. I don't know that it's likely. Actually, I'd probably bet on it being a little more likely. It's likely, I think, that when it gets to the Cowboys' first pick, they will have their option of any defensive player they want. I don't think a defensive player goes in the first 9 picks.
How about that? Bobby Belt, NFL insider, Cowboys insider on the Modelo guest line. Who would you pick at number 3, Bobby?
I'd probably lean Justin Fields. I mean, I would definitely take the first 2 over Fields, Lance, and Jones. I think Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are above those 3 easily. But I mean, Trey Lance could be special. It's just there's a lot of unknown there, like where he played, the competition he was up against, the fact that he only played 1 game this year, and he didn't look particularly sharp in it either. So Lance could be good. Mac Jones, my whole thing with Mac Jones is just you haven't seen it. He executes what he's asked to do, but he's got, 5 yards of separation because his receivers are Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. And he's got good blocking, and he's got a good running back in Najee Harris. And so it's a little you don't know what he can do, I feel like. And so maybe he could be really good. Maybe it's just he's taken what he's being given. That's what Stephen Jones said something on Dallas radio yesterday that was talking about how Waddle and Smith are just so good that, there's not a need for a lot of tight window throws for Mac Jones. And he wasn't saying that as a criticism. He was just talking about how strong the receivers are. But Jones is still a little bit of an unknown to me, and that's why I don't know that he would go 4 through 9 if the 49ers don't take him at 3.
Wow. Bobby Belt on the Out of Bounds show and the Modelo guest line at Bobby Belt TX on Twitter. Great follow on Twitter. What do you think the Falcons do at number 4?
So I mocked yesterday. I put Trey Lance there. And I think that they could go a number of different ways. I think they'd like to trade out. I think that's what they want to do. But if they're there and they're stuck there, I think it's 50-50. They either get their quarterback, whether it's Justin Fields or Trey Lance. I don't think they'd take Mac Jones there if Mac Jones is there. But if they had Justin Fields or Trey Lance there, I think they'd target one of them, or that would be the spot where Kyle Pitts goes.
Okay. If Atlanta trades out, who do you think it's with? Most likely with?
That's tough. I know that, Dallas has, in looking at potentially trading up to target some of their, to ensure they get their first pick of defensive player, or potentially to move up and get a Sewell or somebody. I know they've at least, had chatter at 7 and 4 with Atlanta and Detroit. So Atlanta and Detroit are two teams that I think went out of there. I think Carolina might want out of there. So I don't know that there's anybody inside the top 10. It's not obvious. I think you have to start at Dallas and go backwards to find teams that might want to move up and come get somebody. And it's just a matter of who's got the capital to make it happen. I could see potentially New England going up and doing that. That just may be a bit of a jump for them in terms of what they have to offer. Going up 11 spots to 4 is tough.
Oh, but surely the Cowboys don't move up to get a defensive player, right? Please tell me they don't do that.
If they moved up to 7 for a defensive player. If they moved up to 4, I think that would be to get Kyle Pitts.
Gotcha.
But if they moved up to 7, I could see it being that they want to ensure they're getting their pick of corner.
Boy, you make a great point, Bobby, on basically they're just coming out with the same result. Just, splitting the pie a different way because of Cooper and CD and Gallup and Wilson and Zeke, and then adding Pitts. It's I know the allure, he's transcendent and arguably the best prospect ever at the position, maybe Gonzalez, some others, but man, so you're saying if he is there or they can swing it and get him, you may not, Jerry just may have to do that.
I think wherever they pick, whether it's trading up or they stay in at 10, if he is there, they're picking him.
Wow.
I don't think it's realistic that he is there. I don't think they're ultimately going to trade up. I think they could trade up or trade back. Either one of those is possible. I think it's more likely they just stand in and pick. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think Pitts will get all the way down to 10. There are too many people that are in love with him.
Right.
But, I mean, a lot of people didn't think CeeDee Lamb was going to get out of the top 10 last year, and he got to 17.
True.
And so it's the way I look at it is like this. Let's say when you're making projections for Penei Sewell, and you're saying that could be Tyron Smith. You're looking at Rashawn Slater saying that could be Zach Martin. That, you look at Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn, you're going, well, that could be, my Jalen Ramsey or my Xavier Howard or whoever. And then you look at Kyle Pitts and say that could be Travis Kelce or George Kittle or somebody like that. I don't understand how, even if you're excited about what these prospects can be, and even if Travis Kelce maybe is the better player than all these others, I don't see how you think this team is better this year or 3 years into the future by adding Travis Kelce to the offense instead of adding, Tyron's replacement, or adding a second Zach Martin on the left side, or stabilizing the defense with a legitimate Pro Bowl corner. I don't see how you would think this team would be any better with Travis Kelce over like another Zach Martin. So Kyle Pitts versus Rashawn Slater.
If they don't go O-line we're talking Dak and the Dallas Cowboys with Bobby Belt. If they decide not to go with the offensive line or an offensive line pick in the first or second round, how concerned are you about who will be protecting Dak in 2021?
I mean, you're always worried about Tyron's health, just because it's backs don't get better. And as soon as his back issues started, he consistently has been missing 3 games a year for the last 4 years. And then last year it got even worse. And I don't know that he's ever going to play 16 games again. Lyle Collins had a hip issue. There was rumors that were shot down, to be fair, but I mean, there were rumors that Lyle might retire this offseason. His agent came back and said, absolutely not true, and people I talked to said absolutely not true. But it's at least something that people were poking around on because they thought it was possible. And so the tackles are a little bit of a question mark. I think Zach Martin's always going to be good. I think they feel good about Tyler Biadasz, their center that they took out of Wisconsin last year, who performed pretty well when he stepped in. Left guard is not a black hole. I mean, you'd like to strengthen it. I don't think Connor Williams is a black hole. Connor McGovern stepped in, played pretty well when he had some snaps last year. So I think they'd like to really fortify left guard for the future, with time running out on Connor Williams' contract. And I think that they wonder about the future of Tyron Smith. So I think for this year, as long as Tyron stays healthy for 13 games like he had been pretty consistently for a few years, then I think they're pretty stable this year. The problem is that next year or the year after in 2022, it's a big question mark moving forward. And I think at left guard, you could immediately improve that. That is something you could strengthen and make better by picking Slater or Sewell in the top 10.
What are you hearing about Dak's rehab on his ankle?
I mean, you hear all positive things. There's not a lot of concern. It's very much, getting better every day. They still don't want to put timelines on things. They don't want to say, I'll be back by this time. They're just instead looking at, we're going to look for progress and steadily being able to do more. And he's been able to hit those check marks. And so I think that everybody feels pretty confident that, he'll be full go by the time the season starts, and he shouldn't have any rust.
And okay. And then with Dak, the NFC East, do you agree that it'll look like this? Dak will start for the Cowboys, Jalen Hurts for the Eagles, Daniel Jones for the Giants, and Fitzmagic for Washington?
Probably, unless Washington moves up and gets one of those quarterbacks. And I don't think Dallas would let themselves do that. But if Carolina's trying to bail out of 8 or Detroit's trying to get out of 7, and Justin Fields is sitting there, Washington could go up and get him. I don't know if Washington's gun shy at all about Ohio State quarterbacks now because of Dwayne Haskins.
Right.
But I think that Washington, that'd be concerning to me if Washington were able to move up and get one of these quarterbacks. That would make things tough on Dallas, I think, next year and into the future.
We'll leave it there. Follow him on Twitter at BobbyBeltTX, Dallas Cowboys Insider. Joined us on the Modelo guest line as we get ready for the NFL draft on Thursday. Bobby, super stuff. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate you.
Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys Insider. Follow him on Twitter at BobbyBeltTX. And he really, really, really likes Dak Prescott as an NFL quarterback, as he should. But he's one of the ones from the jump that said, this guy's legit. He's a big-time player, playmaker, making plays left and right. And when he walked in, Des Bryant was on, the 17th hole. Jason Witten was retired in the clubhouse. And what's the little white dude's name that went to the Buffalo Bills?
Cole Beasley.
Yeah, Cole Beasley was the best playmaker, so to speak, as far as catching the football. And, of course, Dak and Zeke. And that was the only year the offensive line was intact, right? Blake, as far as
I would
injuries.
say that's probably at its peak.
Was 2016.
Under Dak. Yeah, correct.
And then you look at this. I saw a number, or either you gave it to me. It was a huge number that the big three have missed the last 5 seasons.
Yes.
As far as games.
It's a monster number.
Yeah. As far as Martin, Smith, and Collins.
Yep.
Okay. Several dozen.
Yeah. And then obviously Travis Frederick retired.
Right.
So, you lost a Pro Bowl, All-Pro center.
Right. Is that it?
That's it.
I feel
We're
like
done.
we just did an hour of Sports Talk Radio.
We done.
All right. New York-style pizza at Sal and Mookie's in the district in Eastover. Check them out. Also, Bravo Italian Restaurant and Bar, of course, wonderful, wonderful place. And, Broad Street. Don't forget about the breakfast pizza at Bravo Italian Restaurant and Bar for brunch. Breakfast pizza for brunch at Bravo in Highland Village. But they just moved Sal and Mookie's to the district in Eastover. Also, the show is brought to you by Boar's Head, Compromise Elsewhere, deli meats, cheeses, hummus, among many, many other things. Game day platters, charcuterie board. It starts and ends with Boar's Head. Boar's Head, Compromise Elsewhere. Also, the show is brought to you by Went McGee, mortgagemanms.com. We'll see you tomorrow.